Hello, Goddess Body Mind Spirit community. This is Tyra Omilade, your goddess guru, and I love helping women align with their life purpose using the power of ancient wisdom and the goddess centered lifestyle. And what I want to come on here today and talk a little bit about is just what I'm noticing in the news, and perhaps maybe astrology can give us some insights. One of the things that I appreciate about astrology is it makes me feel sort of like I'm in the know. I may not all the time like or understand what I see, but astrology will help me to make it make sense. um, it is no secret that I really love Will Smith, and I don't have problems with people who criticize him. But yeah, I want to look and see what is going on with Will Smith. And also, I think there's a connection between Will Smith and P Diddy. When I heard about the news regarding P Diddy and the accusations made towards him, I thought, you know what? Is P Diddy a Scorpio? I don't know much about P Diddy, but I was like, this is not a coincidence that both of them are this news is coming out. These accusations are coming out about them, and it's in the same vein, something to do with the topic of sex. And the last thing I want to do is talk about something that I have been kind of hyper focused on, which is the USA Pluto return, because we still are in the midst of that. And so there's a theory that I have that I want to share. And it doesn't matter to me if I'm right or wrong. I hope I'm right. But it's not, I hope I'm right because I want to be right. It's, I hope I'm right because I think it will take us in the best direction. But I want to talk about that also. So, Will Smith has had it pretty rough. The eclipses for him, when I talk about the eclipses, I mention them because eclipses create radical change, they create transformation, they create an up level. And a lot of times, if you're off course, it's going to course correct. And so, a lot of times, a course correction, it'll look harsh. It'll look like the person is having a hard time in their life. A lot of times, when I see people or people contact me and they tell me about what's happening, I'll think without knowing anything about them, it's the eclipses. And the majority of the time, I am correct. So the eclipses have been kind of hitting Will Smith up all in a row. But the ones that we had in Gemini and Sagittarius back in 2021, they were kind of hitting him up in the area of um, like his life going in a new direction. And when the eclipses were there, is when Will Smith was just like everywhere. Everyone's talking about him. Everything he touches is turning to gold. It's like Will Smith next level. And, it was during that time that he got, I think it was an Oscar. Um, and then once the eclipses went into Scorpio, that's when Will Smith started just coming undone. And, I do not condone what he did to Chris Rock. It was wrong. He knows it's wrong. Everybody knows it's wrong. We don't even need to talk about it. It was wrong, right? It's like no matter how many thousands of reasons people gave for it, Will Smith, whether he just caved to pressure or not, whatever, he should never have put his hands on Chris Rock. But it was the eclipses in Scorpio that we started seeing Will Smith start sort of it was the downfall. Okay, so and why is this important? Well, he has Neptune and the moon. I'm not going to count this series for the most part, even though asteroids are very important. I'm not including that one in this. I'm just going to talk about these planets because there's zero question that when the eclipses started happening in Scorpio and Taurus, he was hit up right away because the eclipses come in at the back end. It doesn't come in on the front end of the house. It comes in on the back end of the house. And that's when we started kind of seeing his demise. And then it hit up his moon. And all of that was, like, also leading he had the book come out, and so it was all kind of, like, leading up to some deep healing, some deep transformation. I remember him, you know, this was prior to the eclipses, but I think it was all mixed in there, this transformation in his body when he was creating the book and setting up the book launch. The eclipses that happened in Gemini, that was part of the transformation in his body, right? But it was just like this deep healing that he was going through, which this is what Scorpio will lead you to. So I just think, and then of course, these planets are all in this house that has to do with work. It was something about work and that kind of thing that was going to transform for him also. And he just pretty much has just been kind of like laying low. My prediction was that he was going to take his career in a new direction. I mean, he's a bad mama jamma. He's still like, I know at least one. Hold on one second. Where is it? I know at least one. I think he's had at least one movie that he was able to get out. This movie was already in the makes when he hit Chris Rock. Um, but he was able to get that movie out. I know I've seen him release something about a video game he was in, and he's been working on his podcast. I recently saw something come out about him and the hip hop era and the podcast. I mean, it was a really good podcast. He's extremely good at podcasting. One thing Will Smith recognizes is that he is good with social media and just like reaching out to people on the internet and sort of like this community type thing or whatever. Um, so I've seen some of that with Will Smith, but my prediction was that something was going to have to change with his career. I kind of felt like maybe even would go more spiritual or something like that. But I knew we would see big changes once the eclipses came into Libra. And so, I'll tell anybody, to me, Libras seem to be actually, they struggle. You would think Libras were really good in relationships, but I find Libras actually, they really and truly are here to learn relationships. So they are not always the best at relationships. So, the eclipses are happening in this fifth house that has to do with relationships because right now they're in Aries and Libra. You can see here it is right here. Oh my gosh. The last time I looked at Will Smith's chart and kind of went through it, I was like, I actually feel kind of bad for Will Smith because when you look down here in this house that has to do with home, um, those are hard planets to have. Jupiter is pretty okay, but Mars, Pluto, and Uranus are very, very difficult planets to have in the house that has to do with home and family. And we know how he was raised up. We've heard about, I forgot what he calls his dad, but um, the way he was raised up by his father was extreme. It was, like his dad instilled something in Will that has helped to make Will extremely successful, but he also broke Will. And so I guess this is the time in his life because he just has so many planets that are in one place. This is not the end. Like, oh my God. Will Smith is, I mean, okay. He has well, we're gonna even count uh Gemini and Sagittarius because on the opposite of Gemini over here at 7 degrees of Sagittarius, it's called the descendant. It is the point that has to do with relationships. So, and this is extremely pivotal where these are in his chart, very pivotal places. So, but it's the part of the eclipse that is there. I can imagine, let's see here, 18, 19 years ago, this is where Will was building everything. This is when everything was like really building because wait a minute. It would have maybe 9 years ago. Now that I think about it, 9 years ago, 8, 9 years ago, when the eclipses were in the part of the eclipse that is like, let's go in a new direction, new beginning, success. That was down here. And now it's flipped. The part of the eclipse that is about releasing and letting go is now down here. It's two parts of the eclipse. One part is like new direction, and the other part is like release, let it go. And he just so happens to have so many planets in one part of his chart that when those eclipses, the part that's like release and let go, when they start coming through, it is going to cause his whole life to a certain degree come undone. And I'm just going to stick with Will Smith is going to become more spiritual because this part of the eclipse, this little thing right here, is called the South Node. It is K2, and K2 is more spiritual. And it was actually revered, and K2 was revered back in ancient India because it was the part of the eclipse that would allow people to kind of like you renounce like material and worldly, aspirations. And it's more of like, let's just be spiritual. It made people more caring. It kept the community safer. And a person who was too much about themselves, when people were more connected in like how we survive, and we are all out working and getting the food together and like bringing it all together and eating it and keeping our little community safe. Everyone needed to be on the same sheet of music. And so Cato is like this energy of just like, the spirit will take care of me. And it's an energy of detachment and release and let go. And a lot of times when you have K2, there's not a lot of worldly aspiration. It's more of like, I want to be the kind of person where I am, just becoming more loving towards myself and more loving towards other people. And I want to grow spiritually. And so, um, but what it feels like for us in modern day times, because most of us don't really have this concept, is you just feel like it's a lot of loss. It's just so much loss, so much loss. Oh, it just pains us, right? So the eclipses here in Libra and Aries, because it's always two signs. You have to always say two signs. So the eclipses in Aries and Libra started in April, right at the end of April. And we see what has happened. So the first thing that got hit up in his Libra house was his Venus. And we see what has happened. Like, oh my gosh, all this talk about him and Jada and all the things that Jada is saying about him. What is Venus? It's love, it's marriage, it's relationships. Um, and so that has kind of started coming out. And his Venus and his Mercury are just right there together. And so that Mercury got hit up right away also. Now his sun, that's not going to be until next year. So let's see here. This is when we're going to really see a big change in Will's career. Let's see here. I need 2024. We're going to have an eclipse happen, I know, in March, and that one is going to be uh, on the 25th. So we'll see it as soon as spring, sometime around spring, because it's going to be right there almost directly on his sun, because the sun is at 3 degrees of Libra. So I don't know. Okay, also he's having a nodal return. And maybe this is one of the reasons why I said I think Will Smith is going to go in a new direction. Now, I do think he's going to get more spiritual, but I think that Will is going to lean more into the podcasting and because I remember seeing him and Jada on a video, and she was trying to get him to talk, and it was some video that she posted about him. And I personally kind of felt like she was poking at Will, and he was just being quiet. And he said he stopped her at one point and he was like, for a fact, I make my money on social media. You need to stop this. So I think that whatever Will does, like the way he was in that video game, and I think he's gonna just totally remake himself. It's just who he is. He's gonna completely and totally remake himself, and how he makes his money is going to change, or he's gonna see like the next phase of what he's supposed to do. And so I do think it's going to be with technology and AI and digital. He may even, with this at this point, go more behind the scenes and start elevating other people, maybe having his own company or something like that. But he's being hit up mightily by the eclipses. And, Mercury is this sign, a planet that has to do with news, like people talking. And so, like, folks cannot keep Will's name out of their mouth. It's also the news, constantly hearing something about the news. And so I remember a few weeks ago when Belial said that he was going to produce this, or he's in the process of writing a book and he's going to release it. And this is somebody who used to work for Will, and, actually, I think he was there before Jada was on the scene, and, at some point, he left from working with them, and, he has this book that is coming out, and when they found out his book was coming out, Jada released her book sooner, allegedly, this is what he's saying, than, what he, uh when he said he was gonna release his book. And so, of course, this week he went on. I don't know Tasha K, to be honest with you. I've heard a little bit about her, but he went on her, I guess, podcast to talk about, or YouTube channel to talk about the book. I did not watch the whole thing just because I'm very cautious or selective. It's like, what am I going to use my consciousness on? And I just thought I heard Bilal on Comedy Hype, and I understand Bilal thinks that Will is a good person, except for, he's maybe done some things that aren't right, and Will needs to make it right. And Bilal is allegedly supposed to be a friend of Will's to help him to be better or something like that. I don't know. That's what Bilal said. Um, and so this is why he's putting out the book. And so this week, it comes out that Bilal is saying, making these alleging that he caught Will Smith with another man. And I was like, why? And then I was like, oh, the sun and Mars, a new cycle starting here in Scorpio. And I was like, and he's Will Smith is a Scorpio because that's where his moon is. And that new moon was on Will's moon. The other thing that I think is happening too is opposite his moon. Where's Uranus right now? Yeah. Opposite his moon is Uranus. And so what is Uranus? It's news. It's something that comes out all of a sudden. And for Will, it's coming out about something with sex. Actually, this fifth house is a house that has to do with sex. Scorpio has to do with sex. Even, where it is in his chart is in the area that has to do with work, workplace. And so, Bilal worked for him. Bilal was an employee because that's the sixth house is an employee. So it's kind of like, okay, well, when I see the astrology, I can see how all of this is coming out. Now, the for sure why behind it, that's up to Will. But how all of this is coming out, yes. And when I say the why behind it, it's kind of like, okay, when I think about spiritual work, I have been taught and bought into, it's always a reflection of me. It's always about me. What is this really about? It's this energy of opposition, you know? The eclipses are opposition. And even though it sounds like Will and Jada are good with each other, it's still this perception of opposition. Jada versus Will, Will versus Jada. And so he has that energy of opposition set up in his chart in a pretty significant way. Um, I just believe, well, what the eclipses say is that, you know, it is time for you to, make sure that you're getting yourself aligned. Is there something that needs to be released and healed? Maybe this is happening because what if Will feared this? And so now, because let me pause it right here. This Saturn has been transited also by the eclipses, and it'll make you face your worst fears. Um, what am I trying to do? And maybe so for me, I am not questioning whether Bilal is telling the truth. I'm not questioning anything about Will's sexuality, nothing. But I am just saying that I think that it could be, what if Will always had this fear? It just sounds not fun to be a celebrity. Like, they have a lot of money, but it doesn't sound fun. Okay, wait a minute. This last eclipse was at 28, 20, 14, 21. Okay. Yeah. So the eclipse that we had in October was on this Saturn. And so it's like unlocking fears and fears so that you can offload it, and it's not going to be like your worst nightmare, your worst fear. Even though I know Will has dealt with a lot, he's talked about how there's all, I've heard people who are ultra wealthy and famous, especially celebrities, saying this all the time. It's always some lawsuit that they're caught up in, and it's people that will try to provoke them and stuff like that. But maybe this one is one of the ones that's been a little bit like worse. Like, my worst nightmare, somebody who used to be my friend is, out here saying these things about me. Um, so there's a lot happening for Will Smith. And even just to see this Saturn oppositioning two of his planets, it's just a lot. So that's one of the things that I think is happening with Will Smith. And it's just gonna continue. Yeah, because once the eclipses go into Pisces and Virgo, it's even more. And even his Neptune right now is at 24. So he even has Neptune. No, 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 no. Yes, he has Neptune oppositioning his Pluto. And so a Neptune transit is something that actually kind of dissolves a thing. And yeah, it just kind of makes things kind of like poof, go away. Sometimes there's illusions, and it's oppositioning Pluto. Pluto is a planet that we can relate to sex. So it's like illusions about sex. But more than anything, I think that this particular transit is just it's bringing about this energy of this need to get healed up, because Pluto is deep, deep, deep healing. And that transit, because these outer planets like Pluto, they move so slowly. So it's been there for a while, hitting up this Pluto. And it will make you kind of go behind the scenes, because I have the exact same thing happening for me right now. Pluto Neptune opposite my career point. And so it's just, yeah, it makes me spend inordinate amounts of time alone, behind the scenes, that kind of thing. So, but it's all about refining you and getting you to a place where, you're more spiritual, you're more aligned with your destiny. But yeah, Will Smith is going to have a lot going on. I will say that same Pluto, Neptune is going to be helping him though. That excuse me, Uranus. Well, even Jupiter. We have Jupiter here in Taurus. That's going to be helping Will with this Virgo house that he has going on. And that's this year into around May of next year. And this Uranus is actually helping out this house. Even with Neptune opposing his Pluto, we have Uranus sending it some good energy. So I think that Will continue to remake himself. He'll be able to renew and regenerate because that's just the energy of Scorpio. But yeah. So P. Diddy, which we don't have his time of birth, but we do know, which I didn't know he was a Scorpio. I don't actually know much about P. Diddy. I've listened to some of his music, but I don't know much about him at all. But when I heard about the accusations that were coming out about him, I was like, oh, he's got to be a Scorpio. And then when I looked, I said, oh, he's Libra also. He has some placements that are very similar to Will. Wait a minute, when is Will born? 68. Okay, I was gonna say I didn't think they were the same year, but for whatever reasons, they have some similar placements. So, anywho, P. Diddy has his sun sign at 12 degrees of Scorpio, and his Mercury is at 4 degrees of Scorpio. So both of those have recently been hit up by the eclipses also that were in Taurus and Scorpio. And so and it's the part that's purging and releasing. And look, it's news. So there's probably some transformation that's been happening in P. Diddy's mind because it's, the mind. The sun, we can always relate to career. But the other thing I'll say is we can relate it to men. It's a masculine planet. And yeah, it represents men. And so it could be something around him as a man or something around his career, which his career always we can kind of think about no matter what accusations are made that are personal, it affects his career. So, that was the first thing that I saw. Now, the new moon and actually the Mars and the sun, let me see here. I do include that in this his son got hit up with that new moon. So something new was going to pop off of P Diddy, no question. For those who know astrology, I use a 10-degree orb. But the sun and Mars meeting right here with this Neptune, both of them have something going on with Neptune. I'm like, wow. So this Neptune is something about illusion. Another thing about Neptune could be secrets. So I'm not saying, all I'm saying is secrets. Something could come out. But the other thing we have to remember about Neptune is Neptune, I'm not going to lie, y'all. As much as I love Pisces, I'm a Pisces. I say this with a lot of love. I love the planet Neptune when it's not wrecking my life. These planets can deal with a lot of lies, a lot of lies. I do not ever doubt a woman when she says she has been sexually assaulted. So this is not about that. I'm just saying that it could be either a secret is revealed or a lie comes out because a lie is like an illusion. Um, I believe that eclipses are karmic. It's not I believe, I was taught. Eclipses are karmic and they have to do with destiny. So whatever's happening, it's an opportunity for both Will Smith and P. Diddy to get more aligned with their destiny is how I'm gonna say it. So that last eclipse that we had in Libra at 21 degrees, you see, look at this. P. Diddy. Now, oh, that's a nice little wealth placement. I see you, P. Diddy. He was destined to be rich. What did Will have? Sometimes I like to see, can I see the person's rich placement? Mm, Moon is in the sixth house. Will seems to be rich the way that I would expect somebody with a chart like this is going to be rich through hard work. But P. Diddy is just a little bit. Well, I will say he has this part of fortune over here in the 11th house. 11th house is the house of gains. Cha-ching, cha-ching. But this is definitely a wealth placement right here. I can see why P. Diddy is just so smooth. Seems like he's fashionable. Maybe he has a fashion line. Um, I don't know. Something in that fashion, you know, vein because that's Libra. Both of them are Libra men, so they are so fashionable. But Venus with Jupiter, cha-ching! Wow. But guess what? Both of those planets got hit up with that eclipse, baby. Okay. It's in the house of relationships. Now, I mean, in the sign of relationships. I don't know what time he was born, so I don't know what house this is, but dang. There's no denying Libra's about relationships. So something coming out, something around relationships. So I'm not surprised to hear this. He's a Scorpio. Scorpio has to do with sex. And Scorpios are just being hit up right now. It's just how it is. Like, this is the time for Scorpios to just, it's one or two ways it's going to happen. Either you're doing what you're supposed to do and you just kind of get catapulted up, or you're off course and the universe is like, oh, it's your turn, Scorpio. You're going to get course corrected. The difference between the Scorpios, which I'm a Scorpio, and the rest of everybody else is we're not getting a break because the eclipses are not in our sign anymore and we're still getting hit up. And I say it's because of this Mars in this Saturn, excuse me, Mars in the sun meeting here in Scorpio. It's just kind of like, Scorpio, you ain't done. You're going to keep transforming. You're going to keep taking your life in a whole new direction. Um, but also, P. Diddy has these two major planets. I bet you P. Diddy is going to pay this woman to be quiet. That's my prediction. He is not going to let this thing play out. This is not a good look. Let's see here. Venus today is at 11. This is like not the best thing to be happening when he's about to have a Venus return. So here's Venus in the sky right now, and she's getting very close to his Venus. And so when you're at a Venus return time, it's like a new year. You want to set it because she's all about manifestation. So you want to set about 7 days before and 7 days after, um, to um, where like everything that you want to happen over the next 15 months or so, that's what you want to make sure happens. If bad things are happening, it could be imprinting on you what's going to be coming forth during for the next 15 months when you're at that Venus return. You want to start a little bit before and go a little bit after the actual Venus return. But I honestly believe that P. Diddy is going to he's going to do something to try to fix this and get her quiet. Will is also having a Venus return very soon also. Um it's a little bit out for him, but yeah, I think that the other thing I will say is Libra is lawsuit. So P. Diddy actually could go down the lawsuit route. Will and Jada said they're considering it. I kind of see that as them like shooting like a warning fire, like, keep it up, Bilal. We're gonna take you to court. Um so yeah, it could be that also. I don't know why I kind of sense P. Diddy is gonna try to just be like, let me get her be quiet. Whether she's correct or not, he's gonna do everything he can to get her quieted down. Uh, Will having this Venus at 29 degrees, it explains why he struggles. I don't know if I said this on the last time I talked about his chart, but it explains why he struggles with relationships. Um, let's see, is there anything else? Let's see here. Uranus is oppositioning, nothing directly oppositioning. But Jupiter is at 8 degrees. So this Jupiter is oppositioning his sun, and it's also going to directly opposition this Mercury. And P. Diddy and Will, they are so similar because P. Diddy has Saturn opposition his Mercury and his sun. Saturn is a beast of a planet. That planet will keep you honest. It drives people, it makes people extremely successful, but it will keep you honest, baby. And but yeah, uh, Jupiter has been, right there with that Saturn, and it's opening up something new for P Diddy also. Now it could open up abundance, but again, Saturn has to do with karma. So it could be something karmic. And, here we have Mercury news. So people are talking or whatever. And what else did I want to say about this? So yeah, there's a lot of pressure on them right now. Pressure to change and evolve. The last thing that I'll say is P Diddy also has Mars here at 29 of um Capricorn. Man, P Diddy has so much success energy. Wow. Mars in Capricorn is very is a success position. The thing about this one though is at 29 degrees, and 29 degrees is a degree where it's very karmic, and it will it's sort of like there's something you have to finish in life before you can have success. I mean, Capricorn is karmic. Pluto has been, this is Pluto right here. It's been real close to his Mars. I mean, this has happened multiple times. And so I guess this time it's just unlocking whatever this is, that this relationship with this woman is unlocking it. And so that's another indication of why we potentially are hearing about P. Diddy, and the allegations that are being made against him. Let's see here. Yeah, even the Neptune is over here in Pisces is hitting up his Pluto. So he and Will sort of have something similar, so much similarities in their chart. But yeah, P. Diddy is another one who we will be hearing big changes, and this is just the beginning of what we're hearing with P. Diddy. We will be hearing more around P. Diddy. I really hadn't heard much about him with the eclipses being in Scorpio, but he really just started kind of getting hit up for sure later this year. Maybe at the top of this year, or spring of this year also. Around May, last 6 months. Okay, so last little bit that I want to talk about. I tell you what, I'm gonna make a different video. That way I can make this one a little bit. This one is already super long. So what I'm gonna do is sign off, and then I'll sign back on and talk about the thing with the United States, the Pluto return. I just want to give it its own video. I hope that this has been interesting to you all, and let me know your thoughts, or have you heard something that I haven't heard that would counter what I've said or corroborate what I've said. But I hope that you can see that astrology will help you be able to understand why you see things happening in the world. And what it does for me is it just gives me, to a certain degree, peace of mind. It's just like, you know, I'm a softie, I'm a lover, and I don't like seeing people go through hard times. I think it's horrific that, but I'm like, did Bilal think about what you're about to say, whether it's true or not true? Both of those men have wives and they have children. They have the children, the women, they are celebrities, they can handle it. All of us are 50 plus, we've lived our lives. But I just think it's horrible that these young people, even though they know it comes with the territory, are having to hear people in the media talk about this. I might just have tuned out and I'm not hearing anything, but I just decided once I listened to the original story, the initial story, I was like, I'm not giving any energy to no hearsay, nothing. And it doesn't even really matter. Regarding P. Diddy, I just pray that, this woman gets the healing and the vindication that she needs. If he did wrong by her, that he does right by her, and that this thing gets fixed, because it can be fixed. Just if both parties are going to work together with it. So, and then with it, I'm letting it go. I'm like, yeah, I got things I want to think about. But it does, I immediately knew. something's going on in their astrology, and them and the universe, they'll hopefully they will get it worked out in the best way possible. Thank you. This is Tyrone Milade. Thank you so much, and connect with you soon. Peace and love.